Welcome back. Let's talk about the brace ruling again. The last video got a lot of attention and there were a lot of things that I missed in that video. So I feel it's only right to answer a lot of the questions that were in the comments to the best of my ability. And again, I'm not an attorney. I don't know all the answers to any of this. I'm not the arbiter of truth here. But as far as me being an individual and one person of the we the people, again, I think it is our duty to be able to express our concerns about a lot of these issues that are going on with the brace and the length of the barrel and some of this just arbitrary nonsense that keeps changing and morphing and causing law-abiding citizens to become not law-abiding citizens. Let's do this. In response to the last video that I did about the brace ruling, it did get a lot of comments, and one of my favorite ones was actually from a guy named Peter Boyle, and he wrote wrong, W-R-O-N-G. Great, fantastic comment. Yeah, keep them coming. Oh, he also replied to somebody else and he said, shut up. That's a really effective argument when it comes to the stuff that we're talking about here. So yeah, there's a pretty cool one here. It's a calculation by Paul C. And he says 40 million submissions to ATF in 120 days. That equals 333,333 forms processed per day with 3,000 agents. That's 111 forms per agent. That equals 14 forms per hour to review in an 8-hour work shift. I love numbers and calculations when it comes to this stuff because when the data comes in a form of an equation, it's easier to look at and make a determination for ourselves. But from what I remember, the 40 million submissions is based on an estimate from the data that the ATF has collected about your purchase history. So the data that they don't have on your purchase history may exceed 40 million, and it may be way, way, way more than that as far as submissions that they get. Historically, before you are in possession of an SBR, you'll submit the form, it'll either get approved or rejected, and then the SBR that you did purchase, then you'll have to send it back. The FFL will send it back, and there's usually a charge involved with that. But with this ruling, they've set that 120 days, and if it gets rejected, and especially if it gets rejected after that, now they have all of the evidence that they need. They've got your picture. This is what they'll ask you to submit. Your picture, your address, a picture of the full firearm. And so now they have all the evidence that they need to come to your door. And usually the first warning, and I'm saying this historically, this is what they've done. The first warning is they will come to your door and say, hey, we've compiled this evidence. Thank you for giving us that. And now we're going to take action against you based on the evidence that we have that you've submitted to us. So really, really nefarious, insidious stuff that is happening. And you may not believe me, and that's okay. Look it up. It's there. And they've talked about this at SHOT Show as well. Just recently, an agent did to a citizen who was there. It's another YouTuber. And the agent told them, yes, if it exceeds that and gets rejected after the 120 days, they will take action with the evidence that they have. So there you go. Christian S. wrote, bureaucrats don't make laws, Congress does. My man. Okay, and then Raytino writes something that really speaks to what we were just talking about, how long it will actually take in order to actually receive your SBR, if that's the route you want to go with it. He says, first time SBR and suppressor buyer. I bought both around the same time. The online Form 4 stuff was put out, and they mentioned around a 90-day turnaround. And then he says, here we are about 9 to 10 months later. I got them both separately within a week of each other. And then he says, let's just say the wait times are definitely going to be past 120 days. And he says, don't expect the timeline that was promised or suggested times. And I would add, don't put a lot of trust in the ATF at this point, as far as suggested times and wait times. Lonnie H., just think about the reasoning for the whole thing, and an untaxed firearm is dangerous, but one that has been taxed keeps the public safe. And then I got a couple of people who were really nice about it, but they flat out called me a shill, which is wild because as of right now, I don't have any sponsors, I'm not monetized, I'm not getting any money from any of this stuff. So the main point and purpose of these videos is to give y'all some information and to get the word out and to speak as a person, a part of the we the people, right? I do appreciate constructive criticism, though, when it comes to this stuff, because now there's the ability to make videos like this to where there were things not covered and it really offended people. And so here we are, and there's another video on this to give more accurate information. But if you're trolling, come on, there's better things to do. There's better things to do with your life. But he's basically saying as long as you register within the 120 days, everything's golden and the ATF isn't going to try to trap you. So y'all can believe what you will on that, and I don't suggest doing that. And again, because an ATF agent said that that will not save you if it gets rejected. So probably not the best route to go. Again, I'm not going to give anybody personal advice. I'm not in a position to do that. You'll make your own decisions. Y'all are grown adults, but give y'all the information that the ATF is not giving, I think is very, very important to the citizen who may now become a felon overnight because of an arbitrary rule that doesn't have anything to do with reality. Then Terrence E. writes, if you have a brace on a 16-inch barrel, is it a legal rifle? Yes, I believe so at that point. And there are different judgments and measurements that they'll give you to determine whether or not it's an SBR. If the full length of the firearm is not to their liking, then they may consider it something different. And that rarely happens. And so that's not something necessarily that you need to worry about as long as you have that 16-inch barrel on there. But there are other measurements to keep in mind. But generally, you're okay if you've got a 16-inch barrel on there. Now, will the gun community tease you until you fall into the fetal position and regret all of your life choices if you have a 16-inch barrel and a brace on your rifle? Yes, and it may cause many, many years of trauma and therapy, and you may decide down the road to actually put a rifle stock on there. But as for me, I'm all for attaching a rifle to your forearm and just Ramboing that thing at the range. So there you go. Another comment by Mackay. This is another constructive criticism. Thank you. Why did you fail to tell the views, I assume he meant viewers, that they can also switch their barrel to a 16-inch or just remove the brace itself? And this is actually a very good question, because this is another thing that the ATF isn't telling you. I think they do give you an option to remove the brace and everything's fine. But there are undertones there that if you have any surface area, like a buffer tube, any surface area, and they're very ambiguous, but they don't tell you what type of surface area, how big the surface area should be. They say if you have surface area to shoulder, and so this is definitely a 16-inch barrel. So for anybody who's like, oh, you just said, but any surface area to shoulder. And so this may be considered surface area. The other catch is that if you do go with an option to flatten everything out, you get a different bolt carrier group that allows you to do that, like an AK would, and you keep your short barrel on there. Is that now and still considered a pistol? They may change everything on that as well. It's very difficult to determine what the ATF is going to say on that, and if they've already made a determination on that. Maybe I'll make another video in order to inform everyone about that as well when that comes up, or if it already has. And so leave that in the comments about how wrong I am, or just put shut up in the comments. Seems to be effective. Juan writes, don't need to worry about registering mine. Was out horse mud racing and lost all my items in a boating accident. Can we have a moment of silence for my items lost at sea? R.I.P. Defying Entropy writes, not paying any extortion money. Alan T says, a huge overreach. Absolutely, yes. This ATF grab is an overreach of what they are employed for. They shouldn't have the right or the ability to change and turn millions of Americans into felons overnight. And then I got railed by a couple of people who were very upset about a lawsuit from more than 20 states being about people with disabilities and why the brace was created in the first place. It seemed they were very upset about that as being the only reason why I was talking about it and overusing that point. But that's literally what the lawsuit was talking about and one of the major points of the lawsuit. And so that's why I was bringing it up in the last video. And so yeah, I would agree. They're great home defense, and I think everybody needs one. But they were absolutely designed for the disabled community. That's the whole reason why they were invented. So I may be saying this wrong, but Merce, Bobby, says, I thought this was Gerard Butler. And it is. I'm actually Gerard Butler. And this is Sparta.